Welcome to the Resolve to Read podcast. My name is Jennifer, and this is episode 19. We are helping you read through the entire Bible in 1 year.
Who are you listening to? Close your eyes, take a chance on my voice. My word will light the way for you when it's dark and there's no sense moving. Move at the sound of my voice. Move by the light, make a choice. Listen to my voice. I got something to say.
And I am so sorry, guys. We are a couple of days late, and that is completely my fault. Because I decided that I wanted to make my own studio in the house.
Yeah, that's right. So we're sitting in we kicked a kid out of a bedroom, and now we're sitting in a repainted, the paint's nice. The room looks nice.
It's awesome. I love it. It's very bright. It's peach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your lighting could use some...
Yeah, it's still work light. So we're in the process. Yeah. So it's not going to sound perfect. I got to get some sound panels.
Are we striving for it to sound perfect?
Well, I don't want people to turn it on and go, oh my gosh, what are they doing?
Oh, I got you. I was just, you said it's not going to sound perfect. And I'm like, if that's the standard.
No, we are far from perfect.
If that's the standard, then I should just give up now.
That is true. We should definitely. Good thing we don't have that standard. Nobody on this earth has the standard of perfection.
Sure.
Maybe AI does, but no, I'm kidding.
No.
We'll get to that. But I'm excited, because I was just reading about how our space, where we work is very important, especially if you're a creative person. Did you know creative people need organization in order to be creative? And it seems like the opposite. It seems like chaos seems to follow creative people.
Okay.
But...
yeah, I get it, though. I get it.
But really, they can become some of the most organized people because there's so much swirling around in their minds. They need their environment to have order in order to sort through everything that's happening in their mind. So I feel kind of like that. Like, I wouldn't say, I am a detail person. Would you agree?
In comparison to who? That's the thing.
To you.
Comparison. Well, I used to be significantly more detail oriented, but I think I've been married 25 years now and I have 4 children. So I've learned by the grace of God to be more relaxed about details. I still notice a lot of things though.
Yeah. And I miss a lot of things.
Yep. And maybe the things that we're focusing on that seem to be important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do really struggle when there's chaos. So I have commandeered my daughter's room because I did not have a space in the house. And now I have a space. And so, if you're a creative person, you're really struggling to get a hold of your thoughts and make them make sense. Hey, your kids don't need a bedroom.
You should probably clarify, but yeah.
She's an adult. It's fine. It's fine. I talked to her about it. She's fine. We're good. I saw her sleeping on the couch.
Yeah. Yep.
I did.
Because you took her bedroom.
I put it in the basement. It's fine.
To be fair, she slept on the couch a lot, even when she had a bedroom. So,
anyway, so that's the news in our household, and we're working. We are a little delayed in getting this podcast out because I had to really do some major fixing and renovation and moving of furniture, and we're still in the process, but here we go. It's Saturday, but we're still going to do our readings as if it was Thursday through Thursday. So that would be what dates?
The 9th through the, I don't know.
May 2nd through May 9th.
No.
May
9th. We start on May 9th.
What is today? No, we ended on May. What is, May 9th.
For the record, you can see how often I'm trying to carefully persuade my wife that my opinion is correct.
Whatever.
But she's convinced that it is not until she finally
But my
verifies
opinion
it from
about
another
this paint
source.
color was spot on. Come on.
Sure,
Peach.
it looks nice.
Awesome.
It looks very nice.
If you want a great
It's
bright
not at
color,
all the color you asked me about. You said, what are these colors? And I chose one, and then you painted it something else.
Yeah, I did something different. But if you go to Sherwin-Williams and you ask for cosmetic peach, It's an awesome color.
Yeah.
It is so much fun. I love it. It brightens the room up. It feels like summer in here.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyways, maybe I'll put some pictures out there when I'm all done. We have a lot of headlines that have gathered up because it's been a while. We should definitely check the news. We're reading through the Bible. We're reading our headlines.
Yeah, okay. I don't think there's any expectation that everybody else is going to read the headlines.
And I agree. That's why I'm going to do it for you.
Okay. That's great.
Okay. We still get our news from Florida, and these people are crazy, I think, to live in Florida.
Okay.
From Newsweek.
You pause 2 seconds.
What?
My mom has a place in Florida that she likes to go.
It's crazy.
You just said these people
it.
are crazy. But okay, go ahead.
From Newsweek. Couple go paddleboarding in Florida. Horror at what then enters the water. What do you think enters the water?
Probably an alligator or crocodile, yeah.
Why would I live in a place where I go in the water and I get to swim alongside of an alligator? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know why you'd be horrified because an alligator was in the water. I don't get it.
Why? You don't know why anybody would be horrified.
My point is, you understand if you're getting in water in Florida, there are going to be, they tell you every time you go down there, everybody says,
why would I live in
water,
Florida? Why would I live there? I don't understand. Living in Florida doesn't make any sense to me. You can't even get in the water.
Well, we don't live in Florida, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Let's see. That's it. Ugh, I don't like that headline. Let's see. What else do we got? Okay. So, I love my AI headlines. Here's what's going on in the world from Nerd Stash. Ohio woman creeped out after being interviewed by literal AI. She says, this is the rudest thing a company could ever do.
By literal AI.
Like a literal AI.
An AI that takes everything literally.
I don't know. It said by literal AI.
Okay.
That's the headline.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
So come to Ohio, and then you're going to be interviewed for your job by a literal AI.
Okay. I don't think that's true.
I was online. There was a literal AI there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. From WDTN. This is fun. We're getting closer to July. This is a headline. Woman shares experience as extra for Superman filmed in Ohio. Woohoo.
You just like that because
I'm a woman who had an experience.
You have said you were in the filming of Superman, the new Superman movie. And you have said
I saw the director.
You were in.
I saw Superman.
I have seen the back of your head in a trailer.
That was
apparently they've changed the trailer now.
My part.
And your head is no longer in the trailer.
They cut my head out.
Yeah.
Yes, I was in the preview.
The early preview.
The back of my head. Nobody else will
The
notice
back of your head is
except
distinctive because you have a mix of black and white hair. And
it's crazy hair.
And you're short.
It's hard.
And you're walking up against the Superman actor or walking down the street with a bunch of actors.
Yeah.
And you're walking, and he has to change his direction because of you.
I might be biased because I've never met a Superman before, but I do think he is like the perfect Superman.
Okay.
Just the whole balance of the kind of nerdy, geeky side,
okay.
Then turn into Superman. I think he's an excellent choice. So come out and watch the movie in July.
We have no idea if it's appropriate to watch. So we're not recommending this from a moral perspective.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Just for fun.
But if you live in Cleveland...
Yeah.
If you live in Cleveland, you don't have alligators, number one.
That's true. You get to see your city in the movie.
Yeah. And, we're starting to become like this hub for filming big films.
Maybe, cross your fingers, maybe you might see a hint of Jennifer in it at some point.
Yeah, I know. But you don't have to live in Cleveland for that. But if you lived in Cleveland, you might get to be in your own movie.
Oh, because they're going to do more movies in Cleveland?
Yeah.
Is that a promise? You're making that from the studio?
I think even that shirt you're wearing, that was filmed in Cleveland. I don't know what that is.
This is Captain America. I don't know that it was filmed.
I don't know.
This is like the OG Captain America shield.
Look that up. Google it.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so so you can get into movies. You contact our contact here. She actually lives in Strongsville, I think.
Okay.
And she's the one that handles all the casting and everything. It's pretty cool.
Yes, you worked very hard to get everybody in your family to send in video applications and things to be in the movie, and everybody else was very supportive of you, but we just didn't want to.
Yeah, you guys are crazy.
And to be fair, it was a lot of work and effort and time out of your schedule to do it for pittance.
Hey,
the
reward was not in the paycheck.
The
okay?
experience was the reward.
Yes.
It wasn't the money.
From Futurism, let's see. From Futurism, it says teachers using AI to grade their students' work sends a clear message. They don't matter and will soon be obsolete. I don't know. I have no idea. I
think what it implies is that teachers will be obsolete. They don't matter and will be obsolete.
Teachers using AI to grade their students' work sends a clear message. They don't matter and will soon be obsolete. But it reads like the students don't matter.
Yeah.
Anyways, so then I thought, okay, so the students are using AI to do their homework. AI is grading their homework. Where are the teachers and the students in this equation anymore?
Leveraging technological resources.
So they basically say, I don't want to do this whole teaching thing. AI, you do it. The students are like, I don't want to do this whole learning thing. AI, you do it. So it's basically just AI having this thing.
I think it's a strong and poorly worded stereotype, though, of teachers and students. There are some, maybe this is happening in some cases, but I think those headlines probably are shortchanging the individuals that are involved.
Yeah, I don't know. I read this whole article. It's not cool to me. I just don't think it's cool.
Okay, you read the article. So is it college professors? Is it high school teachers?
This was middle school.
Middle school teachers, okay.
Grading written responses to middle school homework rather than, let's see.
I thought you read it. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
You don't have to read it.
It was very, very frustrating. I'm like, okay, it looks like they're creating math problems with AI. And then the kids are just using AI to solve the math problem. We're not accomplishing anything here.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely these days, different than when we were kids, there are a lot of resources. If you are an industrious kid in school, you can pay for services, all kinds of things that can be done from the comfort of your bedroom chair.
It really started during COVID.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because of the online learning.
It's just like, what's the answer? I don't know. Google it. You know? Okay. So, and we have a new pope. I don't know why I say we, because I'm not Catholic. The Catholic
world
people
has a new pope. Yeah,
there you go. The world doesn't even have a new pope. Not everybody. Only Catholics have a new pope. They're the ones who believe that the mantle was passed down from pope to pope to pope, and that somehow he's infallible. I don't understand all that, but yet they disagree with him. That I think is silly.
Right.
Okay, but moving on from that, I love all my Catholic friends. My daughter is Catholic. I'm just teasing. Okay, the new pope predicts the biggest threat facing humanity.
Okay.
Him and I are going to be good friends.
Okay.
What do you think?
Are you going to tell us?
No, I'm going to see if you can guess. The new Pope Leo the 14th has identified this as one of the main issues facing humanity.
Alien invasion.
No, artificial intelligence.
I could have guessed, but
I feel so justified right now.
There you go.
I feel like he gets it.
Yeah.
He gets it.
We're not at a point yet where AI is actually sincere. Well, the AI that you and I are aware of is actually sincerely intelligent.
So here's some things the article says. The new pope called for an international treaty to regulate AI, warning that such powerful technology risks turning human relations into mere algorithms.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anyways. Good job, Pope. Let's see. In Ohio, where in your state, beavers turned a junkyard into Ohio's only national park with waterfalls, trails, and snow action. Literally. I think AI is writing these headlines.
That's a very generational word to use.
Literally.
Literally to us means actual, real life, concrete.
I mean, it says it's by John Ghost. Yeah, his
Oh,
last
Ghost.
name Ghost.
So it's a ghostwriter.
I don't know.
There you go.
His name is John Ghost, and his headline is Beavers Turned a Junkyard into Ohio's Only National Park with Waterfalls, Trails, and Snow Action. Literally. Literally.
I think I would argue that's definitely not true because we have been to National Park.
Yeah, Cuyahoga Valley National Park.
Yeah, Cuyahoga National.
Cuyahoga
Oh,
Valley.
is that the one he's talking about?
Yes, we did a bike trip there one time.
Oh, I was going to say, so that's because of beavers?
That's
Because I was
what
going to
it
say,
said.
Ohio has a national park. I've been there.
There's only
And
one national park.
There's
The
snow.
Cuyahoga
Yeah,
Valley
and there's snow
National
and
Park.
there's, waterfalls and all that kind of stuff. But he's saying Cuyahoga
You're
Valley
not thinking
National
about.
Park.
You're not talking about state parks. So
No.
we have a bunch of state parks,
I'm
like
talking-
Hocking Hills is a state park.
I'm talking about the national park.
The one right by us, Cuyahoga Valley.
I'm talking about the national
Okay,
park.
yeah, it's made by beavers. Welcome to Ohio.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know the
That's
headline says
interesting.
that. I'm
Yeah.
trusting the headline. Literally,
That's a
trusting
really
it.
big park. That's a really big park for beavers to establish. But go ahead.
It is. Okay. From Ego Ease, whatever that is. It looks like there's 12 pieces of evidence that we might be living in a program.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that
Sounds like a
theory
movie I
is
saw
as
once.
old. That theory is as old as the movie Matrix. Yeah, and probably I think it may have been
News.
based on a book. Yeah.
Actually, I might have read that one. I don't remember. Okay. Let's see. What's some other good things that, blah, blah, blah. I don't like that one. What is this? I didn't filter through my
I
headlines
was going to
yet,
say,
so-
aren't these all in your favorites? How can you
No,
have one
I
in your
didn't do
favorites
that
you
yet.
don't
I've
like?
been busy. I've been painting my office peach. Okay? That was a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
Yes,
And I'm so excited.
Looked like it was.
I get my bookcases tomorrow
Great.
that you get to assemble for me. Woohoo!
Eli's home. He can do it.
Okay, cool. And Eli's been on this podcast too. So if you go back to some previous podcasts, you'll get to hear my son. Let's see. Over from Vice, over 60% of millennials and Gen Zers drink or do drugs on the job.
Over 60% of millennials and Gen Zers. I mean,
Drink or do drugs. And maybe Gen X does, but they forgot about our generation, so they have no idea.
sure, yeah.
That's terrible. It's actually terrible. I might have read that one too. It's just terrible. They're not doing well. From the New York Post.
That's again very stereotypical of you.
What?
They're not doing well. I'm sure there are
I
some.
read my headlines, so
There
I know.
are some who are
I
really
know.
struggling. I get it, but that we shouldn't just paint all millennials and Gen Z.
I'm just teasing.
drugs and
All of
alcohol.
my
Yeah,
kids are
there you
Gen
go.
Z. They know. I think they're doing well. Okay, from the New York Post, verified publisher with 1.4 million followers. The woman who created Mother's Day also hated it with a passion.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, it's Mother's Day is a tricky, and Father's Day for that matter, and then now Grandparents' Day and all these other things. Those are tricky things because it
But how
is
can you
nice.
create it and then
is
hate it?
nice. It is nice to have a time to recognize those individuals that are in our lives that we tend not to, pay any special attention to. That's very nice. But also they're super tricky because like what does trying to figure out what it is that you can do to recognize that person that they appreciate, but also doesn't kind of put them in like a arm behind their back twisted kind of like, well, you have to comply because of that. It's complicated.
Yeah. Let's see. From Nerd Stash. This is kind of sobering. Oregon teacher insists screen time is affecting kids. They have a level of apathy that I've never seen before in my whole career. It's an epidemic.
Yeah. Attention spans too
Yeah.
because of that. And I recently saw a story about and she's regretful of it. I mean, she's trying to change her ways and things. It's not about that, but for whatever reason, she had a baby, and the baby was they had screen time from a very early age, and now at like 18 months old, she's recognized that there's, oh my goodness, what have I been doing? Just allowing this screen to occupy my baby, that kind of thing. And so she's started she's weaning her child off of screen time. And at
hard.
18 months old, this child is
Addicted.
throwing tantrums. Yes, very much so.
There's an
and throwing
addiction.
tantrums. Yep.
And I
It's dopamine.
It is. And I think as a society now, we need to start to really understand what addiction is, because it's coming at us in very different forms. So
Sure.
we always think of addiction as like, nicotine,
We
creates
know
we think of it
drugs
as
and
a
alcohol.
physical
Yeah.
addiction, but
Yeah.
this is very emotional. And very,
psychological
it
addiction,
is.
yeah.
It's difficult for a child to sift through this, and we are literally handing them.
It's not difficult. It's impossible.
It's
a child
impossible.
doesn't have the skill
Yeah.
set to. So that's one of the things I appreciate. It's caught me off guard actually. But as we have a grandson now, and his mom and dad are super protective of absolutely no screen time.
Yeah.
It's so much so that while he was playing or something, and my daughter and we were going to watch something, and he just immediately, as soon as the TV, he wasn't facing it, but as soon as it came on, he's turning around, he's looking, because he's interested, as you would expect. And then we decided, you know what, we're just not going to watch it right now.
Yeah.
Because we do want to protect it.
That
It's hard.
reminds me of that book that, remember, my daughter was on our podcast one time, and she, as a church, read a book about this.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember it.
And the interesting thing, and I also studied this in one of my classes for school, we talked about the addiction of screens and how it is actually hindering just our lives, our enjoyment of life, because certain things that are addictive, they start out at the top, like, ooh, the first hit is really good. But then the more we use it, it's just gradually less and less
So
and
you
less.
so you have to.
And so you have to do more,
spend
and
more
more
time-
and more.
more time in front of
so,
screens.
yeah, so your screen time just increases, and you don't even realize
I
you're
will
doing it.
say it is a very effective tool of Satan to distract us from being able to be still and quiet and present with God in a meditative spirit, because we are conditioning ourselves to always have something.
And think about, like, I got a dopamine hit by redoing this office, by having time to just think, not be in front of screens all day long.
So you didn't have any screens on while you were redoing the office?
Okay, when I was painting, I might have been listening to a movie, but
I'm just
but
playing.
it took me being quiet and to actually envision what I would like in my life, and I started getting excited. And so that's what kids are missing right now. They're not being imaginative. They're not playing, and this is all part of my upbringing. I pretended all the time growing up. Did you pretend?
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and I lived on a farm, so I had lots of access. I was outside a lot.
Yeah.
And I was blessed. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but somehow I ended up with a dirt bike. And so between
So
a
you were
dirt bike,
exploring. You were an
between
explorer.
chores and acreage
Yeah.
and all that kind of
And
stuff.
I was a creator,
was
so I
climbing
didn't know what
around
else
in
to do.
barns.
I'm not going to just sit there and do nothing. So
Right.
I imagined something to do. And for me, that was writing music, and I started writing music. For you, it was exploring. It's getting on your bike. For kids now, it's, I don't know what to do. And they pull out their phone. It's got to stop. It has got to stop. We're
Yeah.
literally ruining a whole generation.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about this because I see it. I see it with my own eyes. And I'm so sad when I think about the life that these kids are being robbed. They're being robbed.
Yeah, I do
life.
think it requires, it's going to be difficult. It's a difficult thing to discuss.
Yeah.
But that's not the point of this podcast.
But we don't have the solution for that. We're moving on. We're kind of way past time. Anyways, you can go see the world's largest rubber duck at Put-in Bay in August. Cool. That's the kind of stuff Ohio has. That's why you should be here. The world's largest rubber duck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to save the rest of the headlines for later because it's time to move on.
Okay. Let's do that.
Yay! My friend at church, she's so happy. We're back in narrative.
Well, I mean,
Well, not. We have a couple of Psalms
the
here.
Psalms are valuable. I mean, they're good to
I
spend
love
time
the
in.
Psalms, but some people really struggle.
But if you get them, for some folks, in large blocks, it's difficult. Yeah.
yes, and
So we've had a week or a week and a half, almost 2 weeks of pretty much straight Psalms.
yeah, so we're moving through the Psalms, getting back into the narrative, into history. I am interested in these Psalms on May 9th because you read them and you're like, is the psalmist talking about David or somebody else?
Messianic Psalms.
Yeah, because they don't quite make sense. David, why would David say, Or why would this person writing it say, it's not even a Davidic psalm. It says, the one enthroned in heaven laughs, the Lord scoffs. Okay, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will proclaim the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son. Who's me? Today I have become your father. What is going on here? Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance. This isn't even written by David. And it's almost like from the point of view of the person writing the psalm, but that doesn't make sense, because why would the person writing the psalm think that God is making him giving him the nations as his inheritance? That doesn't make any sense. Who are we talking about?
Maybe you're getting tripped up on who is the author of the psalm.
Yeah, I think that's the question. Who is the author?
Okay,
He said
so
to
answer
me,
it.
he said, I will proclaim the decree
you're talking
of the
about
Lord.
the writer.
Right. He said to me, you are the son. You are my son. Today I've become your father. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will rule them with an iron scepter. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry.
The author of all the Psalms is God.
Of course, it has to be, because it makes especially this one doesn't make any
Correct.
sense.
So it doesn't, the perspective that you're trying to represent through the person that penned the Psalm is not really important. This can be, it's a Messianic Psalm, right?
So what if I
didn't future
if I
psalm.
didn't come with that knowledge already?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm looking at this. I see the other Psalms written by David, and I see that they're from David's perspective. He's going through trials. We're talking about David's life. He's writing a psalm from his perspective, and how
Right.
and we see an example of how he turns to God and trusts in God.
Sure.
These are different.
Yeah.
So how are these different?
I think the perspective, and I think the perspective of the author, recognizing the author as God, is very different.
Do you think the author even recognizes what's going on here?
Oh, I don't know if I've done enough studies or if my studies in Psalms are close enough in my mind to be able to talk. I just know there's a whole bunch of Psalms. There are Davidic Psalms, there are Messianic Psalms, there are Psalms that are sung on the way up to Jerusalem every year, those kinds of things. But they're not all written. Maybe that's a common misunderstanding, that all the Psalms are written by David.
Well, this one, you can see in the Bible, it's
Right.
not.
I understand.
So what I'm saying is, if I'm new to Scripture and I'm reading and I get to a psalm like this, I think we grew up in the church and we just take for granted, oh, well, this is about God.
Yeah.
This is about Jesus.
Yeah.
How can you read that, though? How do you come to that conclusion? How did anybody come to that conclusion?
Man, I really have trouble getting myself out of the bias. It's hard for me to pull myself out of the 40 years that I have in church to really have that fresh perspective of I've never read this before. I'm reading it now. I don't know what's happening in what's going to happen later in the Bible. I don't know. I can't really relate to that perspective very well.
Yeah, it's something I do try to do, because I think it's important that we do always question the interpretations that have been handed down to us. It is important for us to think through them for ourselves and say, well, how did we come to the conclusion that this is what we call a Messianic psalm?
Right.
So let's look at it. How did we come to that conclusion? Because it's important to understand that. It says, so we have this psalm. It's Psalm 2. It doesn't have the name of its author. And so usually when it's written by David, it will say that it's written by David. So we could assume, I believe, that this is not written by David. It's written by someone else. And it says, the kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers gather together against the Lord, against his anointed one. So it's somebody else standing and observing the anointed one, right? David's an anointed one.
Sure.
So we could be saying, okay, well, maybe this psalmist is talking about David, right?
Okay.
And then he says, let us break their chains, they say, and throw off their fetters. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. Then he rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy hill. So up until now, this psalmist could be talking about who?
Could be talking about David.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And then the psalmist says, I will proclaim the decree of the Lord. So this is the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son. Today I've become your father. Ask of me, and I will make nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will rule them with an iron scepter. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. And then later, kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you be destroyed in your way. I will proclaim the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son. Today I've become your father. Why would the psalmist say that?
Yeah. I don't know, except for that God is... It's an interaction between God and the psalmist.
It's very strange.
And it's something that he wants communicated in written down for people to be able to read. And of course, then we see it.
So either it doesn't,
Messianic.
whatever you do, first half of this psalm is from one perspective. The second half of the psalm is from a different perspective. All of a sudden, now the psalmist has become the anointed one.
Yeah, so I think it's confusing if you don't have any other context to add. If you aren't familiar, or if you're not making the connection with the New Testament and what we're going to learn about Jesus, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, then it's confusing, honestly. I mean, it's fair to be confused because you're reading, like the Davidic Psalms make sense because you've just read like about the stuff that's going on in David's life. But here we have an unknown author and where even within the psalm, it seems to change perspective and it's unclear. So I think the editor helps us a little bit so that you got that benefit, and he refers to them as Messianic Psalms. And in fact, that's kind of the word that we use.
What does Messianic, what's Messiah? What does that mean?
So the Messiah is, and the Messiah has been hinted at all along, right? I mean, it's even...
Anointed one, right?
Yeah, you've made connections about this all the way back to like Abraham sacrificing Isaac is sort of a sign of ultimately the Messiah that's going to come, these sacrifices that's going to be made, right? So all throughout the Bible that we've read so far, we've seen these allusions to and even prophecies of a coming Messiah and a coming king. So we had some kings. We have David. We're going to talk about Solomon. But ultimately, there is like this coming king that is going to be sort of the epitome, like the pinnacle of God's plan for his people. And so that's ultimately where this is going. So this is, I don't want to steal yours. This is a Jesus connection for us this week, because it is referring, this shift in perspective is referring directly to, pointing directly towards
It's
Christ.
like it's from the perspective of Jesus. So now imagine you have the psalmist is talking, he is describing the anointed one, and then the perspective halfway through changes to Jesus's perspective. He said to me, you are my son. Today I've become your father. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. And then Psalm 22. This one, I love this.
So that's the one. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking. The whole time you're talking, I'm like, so it's important. I'm not skipping over them, but that's the one that really stood out to me.
This one,
Go
like
ahead.
we were in class, and I forget, it might have been Kristen. She's just like, it's just like one thing after another is about Jesus. I'm like, I know. If you know the story of Jesus,
Right.
You're reading this psalm and you're like, what?
Yeah, Psalm 22, Jesus actually restates Psalm 22 when he's on the cross. So this is, again, jumping ahead, and if you haven't read that part and you don't know that part of the story, you just have to take our word for it that we'll get there eventually. But when Jesus is hanging on the cross, I mean, the thing that even people who maybe aren't familiar with church are familiar with is, my God, why have you forsaken me, right? Yeah. And I think that's verse 2.
Yeah, and then I underlined also... I am a worm. I didn't underline it, but I'm looking at that. It says, I am a worm, scorned, not a man, scorned by men and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. So I think of him walking with the cross and people mocking him. Yeah. And then this quote, he trusts in the Lord. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Remember when he was on the cross, what did they tell him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're God, well, just get yourself down, get off the cross. Yeah.
You trust in God
for sure.
Let's see what else. I am poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax. It is melted within me.
Yeah.
I mean, this.
It's a description.
My strength.
Yeah, it's a
is
description.
Dried up like potsherds.
Jesus' experience on the cross.
My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs have surrounded me. A band of evil men has encircled me. They have pierced my hands and my feet. I can count on my bones. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them and cast lots for my clothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
so again, it's the Jesus connection. We have to jump ahead to information we haven't got to yet, but
so how is that a
ultimately
Jesus
it's so
connection?
connected. Well, because that is exactly it's like a screenplay of what's going to happen to Jesus
from the mind
at the
of Christ.
Yeah, yeah.
So who wrote this psalm?
Right.
Whose perspective is this?
It's the perspective of Christ.
It's the perspective of
the
Jesus,
Messiah, yeah.
who has not yet been born.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
As a human. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty powerful. Really, really powerful. Let's see. So we have some more Psalms that day. And then May 10th, we have more Psalms.
Something I thought was very interesting. Again, this is from the editor, but he just contrasts, talking about Psalm 22, specifically that verse 2, my God, why have you forsaken me? He just contrasts the kind of common sermon that maybe people have heard about that this sense of despair almost, and this forsaking that happens. And he says that he actually thinks that it's possible that Jesus was signaling the opposite of that despair and forsake, right? And I was like, well, that stood out to me. That in the midst of despair, there is always hope. That Jesus instead, he's saying this, but he's referencing Psalm 22, but it's not meant to be a despairing moment. It's meant to be, there's hope here. There's something in the future. For he has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. And when future generations are told about the Lord's mercies, quote, they will proclaim his righteousness. He has done it. So far from turning his back on us, God has already answered every need in the gospel.
Were you quoting from Psalm 22?
Yeah, well, the quote, for he has not despised or scorned.
Okay, awesome. So you're saying when Jesus quoted the beginning of that psalm, he wanted people's minds to think about the hope.
Oh, for
that's
sure.
in that psalm.
For sure. That's the thing about the Psalms. It's super cool, right? Because it is a horrible kind of a, my God, why have you forsaken me at the beginning?
Yeah.
But it changes.
Right.
At the end.
And the people would have understood that.
And so when Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Those who were, the Jews for sure, were familiar with the psalm he was quoting. And then
they would have thought
they would have
through
made
everything.
the connection, but it doesn't stay that way. Because at the end of the same psalm, right? At the end of the same psalm, for he has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, right? But has listened to his cry for help, right? They will proclaim his righteousness. He has done it. Wow. So yes, it's discouraging, and it's when you read the beginning of it and this is Christ, and then you think, wait a minute, and I had never considered this before. I really appreciated this. Oh, wait a minute, Jesus, I've always thought it was kind of the sad part. Jesus on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because it's a very sad thing that's happening. But then to think, even in his death, even in his lowest moment, lowest in air quotes, even in that most despairing moment, he's intentionally seeding hope into it. So, I don't know. Pretty cool, I thought.
That is really cool. We have the final Psalm of David on May 10th. Psalm 110. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Here we go again. The Lord said to my Lord. So David is recognizing that he has a Lord, and the Lord speaking to his Lord.
Yeah.
Now it's Yahuwah. So Yahuwah says to my Lord. They're two different words. It's not Lord and Lord.
Yep.
But Yahuwah will extend your mighty scepter from Zion. You will rule in the midst of your enemies. Your troops will be willing on the day of battle, arrayed in holy majesty. So he's talking about his Lord. And then Yahuwah has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. What in the world is that?
Yeah, that's super confusing because we've heard Melchizedek's name so far. We've read it, right? Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean? It's confusing.
Yeah. So Melchizedek was the king of Salem. And Abraham met him. There was a battle. They were going up against Sodom and Gomorrah. And he met the king of Salem, Melchizedek, and gave him a tenth of everything.
Yeah, he tithed to him.
And so this is a separate, when we think of the priestly order, we think of the sons of Aaron, as Moses had organized it. And as God said, Moses' descendants will be priests.
Yeah.
Yet Abraham gave a tenth of everything to this outsider named Melchizedek.
Yeah.
And so in essence, Hebrews talks about how the seed of Abraham, who was still in his body, so Levi, the tribe of Levi, including Aaron and his sons, all of them were still in the body of Abraham.
Yeah.
And they all gave tribute to this different priestly order.
Right.
And so it's symbolic of a different priestly order. So David is recognizing that there is going to be a different priest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he combines in this psalm, combines it with the anointed one.
My Lord said that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we know the Messiah is coming. He's going to be a priest, but not from the line of Aaron.
Yeah.
We know from the line
and
of
we
David.
know for a fact that he's coming from the line of David. Yeah.
Yeah.
And through some pretty interesting, God uses, and we've talked about these already, but God uses some really interesting characters, even like people that we wouldn't think, that nobody would think that God would use in that line, in that lineage.
Yes. And so that's the physical line, the spiritual line. Why is a priest important? Why do we need a priest?
Because God has established a system where there is an intercessor in between man and God. So even Moses, for example, Moses stood between the people of God and God. Mm-hmm. And even when God invited the people closer, they said, no, we want Moses, right? And then God establishes the sacrificial system, and there's priests, and there's a high priest, and all these kinds of things. And they are buffers because we just talked about
God is holy.
Yeah, God is holy.
And I am not.
And we just talked about this. You just talked about it, and we talked about it in LifeWise. But because when God shows himself to Moses originally, in the burning bush, he says, Moses approaches it, and a voice says, "Take off your sandals. You're standing on holy ground." And then God says, and Moses says, "Well, let me see you." Or maybe it's God that offers to let him see him. He's like, "No, I can't. I'll die." So he hides Moses in the cleft of a rock and passes by. God is holy, and we're not.
Yeah.
And so we are consumed.
So we need an intercessor. We need a priest.
It's kind of, the Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that scene when they open the ark. I don't know if you remember.
I do.
They open the ark. Yeah. And everybody's like faces melt off and stuff like that because you cannot stand. In the
glory of God.
An imperfect human being cannot stand apart from Jesus Christ, apart
sin,
from a priest,
our imperfection, all of that.
Apart from an intercessor or a priest, which Jesus ultimately is the ultimate priest.
He is. That's pretty awesome. Even David recognized this anointed one to come, who would be from the order of Melchizedek, symbolically, not physically. Moving on. So we get into the narrative starting in May 11th. Woohoo!
Yeah. I don't have any comment about it necessarily, but boy, isn't that interesting. 1 Kings 1:3-4. Then they searched throughout Israel for a beautiful young woman, and found Abishag, a Shunammite, and brought her to the king. The woman was very beautiful. She took care of the king and waited on him, but the king had no sexual relations with her.
Well, that's good.
David was cold. This is what scripture says. David was cold, so they found a beautiful young woman to warm him up and lay alongside him in bed. No sex, nothing funky going on. I don't have any comments about it. I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's hard. That's like, what?
Bathsheba doesn't seem to mind too much. And then she goes, it says later, so Bathsheba went to see the aged king in his room where Abishag, the Shunammite, was attending him. She probably was like, glad. Good, you take care of him.
It's just weird. I don't know. Let's keep
So
moving.
she goes there,
weird.
but why does Bathsheba go to meet with David? Is because David had promised that her son, so he has other wives.
Yeah.
He promised specifically to Bathsheba that her son Solomon would on his
replace
throne.
him, yes.
And yet we have...
But we have an uprising.
An uprising.
Is it, what's his name? Abishai?
Adonijah?
Okay. I trust you because you're looking at it.
Adonijah.
Okay.
Yep, he tries to take the throne.
He tries to, he takes people with him, and he's like, making a big deal, having a bunch of sacrifices, proclaiming himself really as king.
Yeah. And so then Nathan intercedes and tells Bathsheba to go in and...
little trickery. You go talk to him because he won't deny you, and then I'll come in while you're there. Yeah.
So then David announces that Solomon is king. And how does he do it? He comes in riding on a donkey. A mule, yeah.
That ties us right back to the triumphal entry for Jesus.
Yeah. And so Solomon becomes king, and he cleans things up there, takes care of some loose ends, right? Meaning he killed some people. Had them executed. Adonijah was executed. Joab is executed.
Yeah, and you got to get 1 Kings 3:9, right? So give your servant. God says, ask anything you want to Solomon.
Yep.
Now that he's king, and God says, ask me anything you want.
Yeah.
What would you ask for? Really, what comes to mind? I don't think I'm wise enough to ask for what he asked for.
Yeah.
If God wrote you a blank check, said whatever you want, Jennifer, I'm very pleased with you.
Well, because
I'm excited about your future.
Because I've read this, now I ask. Yeah. But I don't know if I hadn't read this, I don't know.
So Solomon says, so give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong, for who is able to govern this great people of yours? In a sense, it's kind of like, I can't do this. These people are a mess. I need wisdom to try to deal with these people.
Yeah. But
also we look at it and it's wow. I mean, it's such a wise choice to ask for this wisdom. And God, in fact, is so, I'm going to use the word impressed, and I don't know if that's the right word, but God is so impressed with it.
Because he didn't ask for riches.
Yeah, he didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask and he didn't ask for all these things. God's so impressed with it that he says, not only am I going to give you wisdom, you will be the wisest man ever.
Yeah.
Up to this point and beyond, right? And also I'm going to bless you with all the things that the average person might have asked for.
And then the kingdom just is starting to really prosper. It talks about how gold is everywhere. Like silver was considered like nothing, like rubbish. Everything was made out of gold. People from all over the world were coming to hear Solomon talk and to hear.
And I think the encouraging application for us too is if God is willing to grant Solomon wisdom, why wouldn't he also be willing to grant us the ability to distinguish the difference, the difficult, there are things in our lives that are just confusing and difficult. And we never quite know, like we're trying to choose between two not great things or, even two good things, which one's better, those kinds of things. And God says, and we know God is a God who will do this because of what he's done for Solomon. God says, if you lack wisdom, I'm jumping ahead to the New Testament.
Yeah.
If you lack wisdom, ask and it will be given to you.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead, not that far.
Okay.
You're exactly right. If you ask God for wisdom, God promises to give it to you. Solomon even gives us this promise. We're not going to get to the Proverbs this week, but technically it's Saturday for us, so we did technically read it on the 16th. It says, talking about wisdom, if you look for it as for silver and search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For wisdom will enter your heart, it says later. If you look for it and all these things, wisdom will enter your heart. You just got to seek it.
If you're receptive and you're seeking
and
it.
Solomon wrote that.
And God, and also we're painting Solomon into this great picture because he is. God thinks highly of him. I'm going to make you blah, 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 blah. But then also, as we start to read about Solomon's life, he makes stupid decisions. Like, that doesn't seem like a wise decision. Like, I don't know much, but I know God's perspective.
Are you saying that his wisdom did not overcome his sin nature?
Yeah. He's still sinful. That's right. Because then he marries on the basis of, I guess, for political reasons, but he marries somebody that's outside of God's people.
He's going to marry a lot of women. We're not there.
I know we're not there yet, but he does. He marries like an Egyptian. He makes an alliance basically with the Egyptian country.
Yeah,
and it's a bad thing. And he knows, this is the crazy part about it. He knows it doesn't please God. Now, God doesn't chastise him directly for that at this moment, but he knows it doesn't please God, so much so that he does something extraordinary so that he can be married to this wife, but not dishonor God. It's weird.
You mean building her own palace?
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, we have a few minutes left. He undertakes a huge project during his reign.
Yeah.
And that's the building of the temple. So we're going now. Remember, during Moses' time, he built the tabernacle, which is like a tent.
Yep.
And if you
Portable.
go to my website, you can see a little video of a mock
reproduction.
Yeah, reproduction of the tabernacle.
Life size.
And we walked through that, and it was pretty cool. And now, David wasn't given the job.
David's heart was, God, I'm going to build you a house.
Yeah.
And remember, God said, not you, because there's been too much blood on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Solomon has been given the charge. David gave him the instructions, and now we're reading about the building of the temple. And it's pretty awesome.
Very intricate.
And I love this verse. What significance does this have? So we're in 1 Kings. This is actually Chronicles, I think. 2 Chronicles.
What day are you on?
May 13th, page 598, if you're in your daily Bible, in chronological order, edited by F. LaGard Smith. I have a link to it in my show notes, so if you want to get your own copy. Chronicles, it says, Then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David. It was on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, the place provided by David. So the threshing floor is where the plague stopped.
Yeah.
So if we remember, David did a census. God punished David and the people with the plague, and it stopped. God's mercy was demonstrated.
Yeah.
God didn't have to stop.
No.
He stopped. And then also it's significant that it's in the region of Mount Moriah. What else happened in the region of Mount Moriah?
We've already talked about it, but Abraham offered Isaac.
Yeah, so this is the same place where Abraham took Isaac and offered him as a sacrifice, and the angel of the Lord stopped Abraham
and provided the sacrifice.
And said, on the mount, the Lord will provide.
Yeah.
And so we have another Jesus connection here.
Yeah.
What else is going to happen?
Well, just
In the
reading
future.
you don't know.
Right. But we should give it away.
Yeah, but obviously, so Jesus ultimately is crucified outside the city of Jerusalem in the region of Mount Moriah.
So the prophecy given to Abraham on the mount of the Lord, it will be provided.
Yeah.
And then we have this example of mercy where the plague stops
In Mount
here.
Moriah. Yeah.
This is where we deserve punishment and death, but God's mercy, but God.
Yeah.
And now we have the temple being built there where the presence of God is going to fill the temple, right?
Yeah.
And, many years later, hundreds of years later.
1,000. I probably, hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah. We have Jesus Christ
The ultimate
being
sacrifice.
crucified, the ultimate sacrifice, and the curtain is going to be ripped in two. And God sends his son. His son becomes the high priest forever in the line of Melchizedek, not physically, but spiritually.
Yeah.
And he is our high priest today so that we can commune with a holy God, even though we are not holy.
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
All of that. That was all. You may not have seen
Yeah.
it, but it was all there this week.
Right.
In our readings, all of it was there.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
That's pretty cool. And part of what makes it so cool is because we know some of the stuff in the future.
Yeah.
If you're just reading, you're like, maybe you're putting some pieces together. Wait, Mariah, isn't that Abraham? Okay, interesting.
It's hard to remember the details,
Yeah.
so that's why we're here.
Yep. To remind you of
yes,
the details
of
and
what
help
you've
make those
read
connections.
and bring it all together so you can see that this is one grand meta narrative.
So Kings and Chronicles is valuable, even though you might read it and you're like, this is just like a historical accounting of things, but there's so much in here. This is God's story that he's writing, and he's doing, it's cool to see how because he stands outside of time, how all these pieces are lining up. Yeah.
Well, good job, everybody. I'm so proud of all of you who have made it all the way to episode 19. You've been reading along with us, and you've been discovering God's word for yourself. Good job, Aaron.
Well, thank you. Good job, Jennifer.
You've been faithful to your readings every day, and so I'm praying for you. Pray for us, too, that we would continue to be faithful, and we're looking forward to getting back on schedule next week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.